So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Andrea Bowens-Jones, and welcome to this month's Brown Bag Virtual Lunchtime Session. I am thrilled to announce this month's topic, Disruptors of the Norm, a discussion with women leaders of non-traditional industries. As I mentioned before we started today's session, this topic is near and dear to my heart as a PhD polymer chemist, being the first one to graduate from Virginia Tech in my program, first Black woman to graduate from it. I know what it's like to be the only one in the room with many of these kind of industries. So I'm excited to have this conversation. So whether this is your first time attending one of the Brown Bag virtual lunchtime sessions, or you are a repeat offender in a good way, that this series is all about having conversations which are designed to inspire, challenge, educate while connecting us as a community. So I'm excited that we have people from all over today to be a part of it. So a little bit about who I am and what I do is the name of my company is IDG Vision. We inspire, develop, and grow the vision inside of leaders. I told you I was a PhD polymer chemist, and you're probably wondering, well, what does that have to do with what I do now? Well, actually, I left corporate several years ago, which 6 years last month, and it'll be a 6-year company anniversary next month. So what I do now as a certified coach, speaker, and trainer is I help leaders get to the next level by offering services around personal awareness, leadership, communication, and teamwork. I offer assessments, whether they be 360-degree or DISC, facilitated workshop, customized coaching plans, and mastermind groups. So, this is one of my free services that I offer. It is a way for me to, continue to have conversations that matter to me, that I think matter to other women in particular. So write this date down. Is coming, my last one for the year, October 21st. As people start to think about, what do I want to do for the new year? What does 2022 bring? I want you to put on that list, I want to be physical fit. And because we all have a race that we're running, we all have a plan that we're carrying out. And so for this last Brown Bag virtual lunchtime session, I'm going to bring on experts to kind of talk about what does it mean to be healthy. And even if you're on the couch and sitting in a chair all the time, what can you do to kind of get yourself moving and motivated? This is the biggest goal that I've had on my list this year, and continuously put it on my list every year. But this is the first year that I have committed myself all the way through. So I'm excited to share a little bit about my journey to getting healthier, and this for our wrap up for this year. So the registration will be open in September. Last announcement is the next cohort for Slaying Your Invisible Dragon starts in October 21. If you're not familiar with this one, I launched this one in January, and it's all about getting rid of success blockers in your career. So if you're in transition, trying to figure out the next step, or just trying to figure your way through it and continuously get stuck, join this mastermind of just 10 people together, all working to get to the next level. And the next cohort opens in October. And if you are with a company that's looking for someone to come in and provide a training, a power hour session is a great way to get started with a very low investment. And you can go to any of my social media platforms or email me directly to find out more information. So the last thing is, give me permission to tag you in the social media post. So take a moment anytime during this hour to put in your social media handle. And so when I post that we had this great conversation today, I want to be able to tag you so we can spread the word about all these great conversations I have with leaders. So that is it for announcements. I am excited to get started. Go ahead, drop that in there, and I'll remind you at the end as well. So as I mentioned in the beginning, our topic today is called Disruptors of the Norm. And where I was really inspired for that particular title was based on some reading that I was doing. And I want to go through these statistics a little bit. So I want to ground ourselves in the facts before we open up today's conversation. The Department of Labor defines a particular industry that if it has 25% of those employed are women, 25 or less, as non-traditional. Women comprise 10.3% of the of those working in the construction industry. Although women make up nearly half of the working population, we're still underrepresented in the manufacturing industry, which is about 29%, according to some of the statistics that I was able to find. And the percentage of women in computing and mathematical occupations who are African American or Black has shifted year to year, but recently has held steady at 12%. And then finally, 28.4% of science and engineering workforce are women, and Blacks are still underrepresented in that field as well at approximately 5% of the workforce, which says there's opportunity. That's the way I kind of go into it. It's not about a diagnosis of why is it or why are we underrepresented in some of these industries where we know women are technical enough to be able to be leaders in it. But the thing is, what can we do about it? And for those that are already leading in those areas, what are they particularly doing to actually shift it or continue to grow it into that direction? So I hope that sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today. It's time for me to introduce my panelists or have them introduce themselves. And so we're going to start with the little boxes on my screen with Valencia. If you can introduce yourself, and as you're introducing yourself, I've asked all the panelists to kind of answer this statement for me today, is to be a disruptor of the norm. What does that statement mean to you? I know I called you that, but what does it mean to you to be that for your particular industry? So Valencia, please start off by introducing yourself. Yeah, you're on mute, Valencia.
All right. Again, good afternoon, ladies. Thank you so much for Andrea for inviting me to be a part of this panel. I'm really excited. I am Valencia McDaniel. I am one of the co-founders and managing partners of Women Gone Global Partners. Myself and my partner, Erica Jean-Baptiste, started this company. We are a integrated service provider that specializes in construction training, construction management, construction virtual office, administrative back office services. And eventually we'll be doing repurpose with recycling materials for construction, as well as reuse and community development. So we are just excited. Andrea asked for us to kind of tell a little backstory. I kind of fell into construction, I won't say by accident or coincidence, because I don't believe in that. I feel everything is ordained and led by God. But I ended up in construction after being in education for the most part of my life. I started off as daycare provider, and then as a administrator in other areas, and then ended up as an administrator with a construction company, and just kind of rose up through the ranks and learned about construction that way. So that is my background in construction, you know, over the past 15 going on 20 years now. I am, what can I say in terms of a disruptor? What disruptor means to me? Disruptor of the norm. For me, it means shattering the status quo. When you're told that this is the norm, and you question it and realize that it can be done better, you know, things don't have to stay the same. And then that's where others can see that there is another solution to the problem. So, and that's what we at Women Gone Global have done. We have decided that we are going to disrupt that status quo of, one, we have the workforce, just lack of workforce workers in terms of the skilled trades in the construction industry. And we realized that women make up a big part of the unemployment population, and women are a viable resource in terms of filling that gap. So we decided we would go ahead and start training those women, giving them a viable career choice, not just a job, but we're using the whole holistic approach, if you will. We're preparing the women not just for a job, but preparing them for a career. And we're training them not just we're training the whole woman and treating the whole woman. If she has health issues, if she has social economic issues, daycare issues, transportation, housing, we are going to work on the woman to ensure that she can unleash her superpowers so that she will be able to be a sustainable, or be able to sustain her family, because one of our quotes is that if you build up a woman, you build up her family. If you build up the family, you build up the community, and all around it's a win-win. So we're just excited, and I'm not sure how much time I have, but I know I'll be saying more as we answer the questions, but that's just me sort of in a nutshell.
All right, thank you. I love it. Build up a community because we are super women, right? Superwoman, superwoman, something like that. All right, Dee, you're next on my screen. Go ahead, introduce yourself, and don't forget to respond to the statement that I provided. You're on mute.
I say that when I'm not talking, and then I talk and forget to do it. All right, start over again. Yeah. Hey, ladies, it's great to be with you. I am Dee Barnes. I'm the president and CEO of Evans Tool and Die, Evans Metal Stamping. And so my family's fourth generation metal stamping business. And we started in 1948. And then I am actually the third generation. We have fourth generation men working in the business, our sons and nephews working in the business now. And so it's a long tradition of that. And unlike many of you ladies who've been so successful, I don't have an official degree. Started out in an accounting field to get a degree and never finished that. And so I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess it may be helpful for some folks to know that there can be success without the degree. But so I usually sit at tables with people with a lot of degrees, so it can be intimidating when you're sitting there without your degree. But I learned so much having this opportunity in a family business, which is a little different. And if I would think about the disruptor of the norm, I would think to me, the first thing that came to me was just boldly pioneering your way. I never really give a lot of attention to that it's not the norm. I just go forward and do my best that I can do in whatever space. And it seems that those things are advanced and rewarded sometimes when we don't really pay attention to what we can't do. You just start doing what you feel led to do. And so my background is in accounting, and I've been an accountant field in the business for 35 years, really. A lot of the controller work, accounting, financial end. And as I learned all the other aspects of the business, I've never really been a tool maker. And our business consists of building dies, which is a large metal top and bottom that would stamp out a certain part. And the flat metal parts that go into industries like golf carts. You make the brackets for golf carts, lighting industry, firearms industry. Everything we stamp is a piece of something that goes into a finished product. So if it's a firearm piece, it would go into something on a firearm, or a brake pedals and plates for golf carts, commercial lighting, commercial refrigeration. All types of in-use manufacturers buy metal stamped parts. And large volume, what we do is large volume. So we're talking 100,000, 150,000, million parts a month or year, depending on the product. One of the interesting things that we've made in the past are little ace bandage clips. So back in the day when you didn't have Velcro, there was ace bandage clip. Well, someone built a die that would stamp out clips, and you would just put them in a punch press and they would stamp millions a month. And those kind of things are gone by the wayside. I don't think we stamp clips anymore, but those are the type things. And the industry is sometimes hot. The warehouse is on air conditioned. So today it is super hot in Georgia, and my poor folks out there, about 65 folks out there in some real heat, a lot of fans, but it's blowing hot air. So it's not the most attractive place that you'd want to be out there. But I love manufacturing. I love things that are built with your hands, watching it from start to finish be built, and knowing that that piece goes into something. We make parts for fire extinguishers. So sometimes you'll pass your fire extinguisher on the wall and know that you stamped all the pieces that went into that. So lots of fun things. A little bit about myself. My husband actually works here in the business. He's a VP of manufacturing on the floor. My two sons, who are 26 and 23, are apprentices for tool makers. And I have a daughter who's 21, who's not in the business. A nephew who's 28 is also a tool maker. And the tool making trade takes about 5 years to be a tool maker, 10 years to be a master tool maker. So it's not like you can go to school and really learn that. It is a trade, and it's part of our family's history and passing that trade on to a lot of young men who don't have a desire to go get a 4-year degree, but they can actually learn to build tools by hand, and that is just a fascinating trade to have, and I think a really good opportunity. And currently there are no women being tool makers that I know of. My grandmother was the first tool maker that I'd ever met, and she built the business with my grandfather and was actually a tool maker. Since then, I haven't met any women tool makers, and it would be something really neat. I always wanted to be that, but somehow I got sidetracked into accounting. But lots of aspects in the business that are really fun, and I love being in manufacturing. I'm just thankful for the opportunity to have done that. So hopefully we'll share some more about how that interacts with the other questions we have.
All right, thank you, Dee. And April, you're next on my screen.
Okay.
And yeah, you remember to unmute.
Yes.
Good for you.
My name's April Branch. I am a civil engineer and supervisor with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. A lot of people know the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers when it comes to disasters. Think Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy. We're usually in the public eye when bad things happen nationwide. But every day, we're the nation's premier engineering organization. And so we do a lot more than just the emergency management. I got my degree from Tennessee State University in architectural engineering. I got a master's degree from Christian Brothers University in Memphis, and that was in engineering management. Right now, I am the deputy, let's see, what is it called? The deputy of the plant section, deputy chief of plant section. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Okay. And so really, we, to explain that, where we are, Inslee Engineer Yard, we have a lot of vessels that work on the Mississippi River doing construction type work on the Mississippi River. And the plant section is responsible for maintaining those vessels and maintaining the facility that we work at. So I'm part of that crew. And like I said about the Corps of Engineers, we do a lot more than just emergency management. So I would encourage anyone that's interested to Google us, and especially Inslee Engineer Yard, to see what we do, because a lot of people will be impressed when they see everything that goes on there. And for me to be a disruptor of the norm, I wrote this down as I was listening to everyone else. I believe to be a disruptor means to have the courage to do whatever you want and not fit within any particular mold. And that's basically the story of my whole life, is not fitting into a mold.
All right. Thank you for that. And last but not least, Dr. NaToshia.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. NaToshia Anderson. You can call me Dr. Tasha or the Nerdy STEM Queen. I go by either. I am a former mechanical engineer turned STEM advocate and STEM entrepreneur. So long story short, I had a 10-year career as a mechanical engineer, which I totally love. Got into education, saw STEM from the education point of view, and really thought there needs to be more people who look like me. So I'm in the business of reproducing myself in real time. So, and what I mean by that is African-American or women of color in STEM careers. And for me, it doesn't matter if you're on the science side, the tech side, math side, or engineering side. I just want you to be in STEM, and not only in STEM, but are thriving in STEM. So that's the other portion of my business, where I do a lot of coaching and consulting with business and industry, and coaching with individuals to make sure that once they get into STEM, they stay. Because that's the untold and hidden story, is that we have people coming in, we have women of color coming into the profession, but they leave after 5 years. That's the average. And so I'm in the business of making sure that they stay, because they know how to navigate that space. They know the ins and outs, because until we can change the culture, we can at least inform those that are entering into it what to expect. So that's what I do. And so to answer our question of the day, to be a disruptor of the norm, first, I think you have to understand the norms, but two, just be willing to be a disruptor. So that's an act of choice that you have to make. And so I think that's my biggest superpower is choosing to be different. embracing whatever those differences are, and showing up in places and being my whole, full, true self, regardless of whether you approve or not. And so that's how I've decided to live the rest of my life. And I encourage other people to do the same. So I am really looking forward to this conversation today, and I'm really glad to be here with you guys.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for each. And can you give them a virtual hand clap or something, thumbs up or something like that, to let them know that one, thank you for telling your stories. And I wanted everyone to do that so that one, as attendees, you guys will understand the backgrounds of everybody there, so that as questions come up, you understand what industries they represent. So thank you for going into your backgrounds and telling a little bit about your story as well, and for shedding light on this title that we have today, Disruptors of the Norm. So I love the perspective that each of you shared. So to all the attendees, please, you do not have to wait until the end to ask your questions. If you have a question at any point during our conversation, drop them into the chat and I will try to address them real time. So don't hold on to them to the end, because we'll probably talk all the way up to time for closing. So just as a reminder for that. All right, so first question that I want to kind of get into this one. And in particular, what are you in particular or your organization doing to help encourage more women and minorities to enter your industry? So we're going to start off with that one. And any takers before I start calling on one of you to kind of jump in there? All right, Dr. NaToshia, kick us off with that one. What are you or your organization doing?
It kind of leads into what I do on a day-to-day basis. As I said, I'm in the business of reproducing myself. So so that means a myriad of things. So I look at it as three different phases, if you will. I'm heavily involved in the education field, if you will. Really dealing with schools and nonprofits and anyone who has their hands on our children as it relates to STEM education. So I don't know if anybody knows, but there's a lot of people who are doing STEM education or STEM activities, STEM camps, STEM programs. Some of them are not that good. They're calling it, I'm being honest. Some of them are good, but they're calling it STEM. And so it's part of what I do is making sure that you're doing STEM with fidelity. And that means that instead of like focusing on science and technology and engineering as these individual things, that you're focusing on them together. I think April can tell you, and probably Valencia can tell you, Dee can probably tell you, that these things are integrated together. So even if you're a scientist, you're using technology and you're using math. If you're an engineer, you're using all of, so it's not that we should be siloing each of them. So then there's that. So again, I work with business and industry, especially making sure that the culture that is within businesses is welcoming, because that's one of the main reasons that women and women of color or people of color are leaving, because the environment is not welcoming. So I do that work. And then I coach the women's for me, to make sure that they are, while we're changing the culture, that they're prepared to go into this environment that's not been set up for them. And then I have a podcast that celebrates and talks to women of color and asks them to tell their story, because that's the other thing. We don't know people's story. That's why Hidden Figures, the movie, was such a huge deal. Yeah. It's because we don't know their stories. And so it's up to us to get our stories out there into the public, into the world, so that we can be the inspiration for younger people. So
awesome. And Dr. NaToshia, please drop your podcast information into the chat box so people can check it out for you. So thank you for sharing. Somebody else want to drop some knowledge on what you or your industry is doing. Uh-oh, am I freezing? Can you guys still hear me? Can you guys still hear me?
In terms of building up, we want our women to know and build up their own confidence levels, being sure that they are aware of what their superpowers are, what they possess inside, so that they can utilize those powers to gain, obviously gainful employment, but to move forward in life in a way that they can be confident that whatever they strive toward, they can achieve. So we're just excited about our program. I'm excited about the women here because I know we will be connecting with you all.
And sorry, I dropped for a second.
I know.
The conversation kept going on even without me. Did anybody else want to add before I shift gears a little bit? And I want to talk, make this a little bit more personal. Did anybody else want to add? All right. So I want to shift gears a little bit. And we talked about women entering the industry, and we know there's a lot of programs out there, but also, oh, okay, someone needs to mute. I'm getting some background noise. Make sure you're muted.
There you go.
Thank you. Is life failures can be powerful teachers, and as women in these kind of industries, I want you to talk a little bit about the hard lessons you've learned that propels you to kind of educate and mentor other women, or if you do, mentor them to go into your industry. April, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
You look like you were ready to say something.
Uh-oh. Someone else's mic is hot.
Oh, let me see. I will mute. Okay, you can go ahead. I muted.
I think when I look back on my own personal experience, I wish I could tell my younger self to take more chances. I feel like I'm 40, I'm going on 42 this year. I know I don't look like it, but 20 years ago, there was a lot of opportunities thrown at me that I chose to play it safe on. And I mean, things turned out fine, but now I won't say I have regrets, but I'm curious what would have happened if I had taken advantage of those opportunities to travel, to do something different. And I would tell a young woman in my position to not be afraid to take a chance on, of course, a good educated chance. You rationalize what's not being foolish. Just get out there and don't always play it safe.
That's good. I think when I think back on my failures, I think I always took, when I was younger, I always took failure really hard. Like it was a personal statement about who I was as a person. And not necessarily that the thing I was doing was, failed, or the program I was in failed, whatever it is. And so the first thing that I took, or that I now take from those lessons, is that it's not personal. That I look at failures as, what was I supposed to take or learn from this situation? And then I really work hard to learn those lessons, because what I do know is that if you don't learn the lessons, the thing will show back up and maybe look a little different. It'll be the same lesson. And so I'm usually like, okay, what was I supposed to take from this? And I'm writing things down. I'm making the pictures, and I'm drawing the conclusions. And I am, I pray a lot, and I'm like, okay, God, show it to me, because I really want to make sure that I got the lessons. So you don't have to show this one to me again. That's what I take. That's what I take from failures most of the time. It's like, really, what were the things that I was supposed to get from that? Maybe it was a skill. Maybe it was a discovery of a talent. Maybe it was discovery of something about myself that I didn't know I had, or I developed something along the way that maybe I'm thinking of differently, that that I need to recognize. It's all of those things. And so I usually look at failure like, this is an opportunity for growth, and not necessarily as an indictment to who I am as a person.
Thank you. Now, Dee, I'm sure you probably had a different level of pressure coming into a company that your family had this rich history on. Can you shed a little bit of light about how you've managed that one coming into a family-owned business? And I'm assuming you're the first woman leader for the company.
I am, that's for sure. Yeah.
Bravo.
So when I think about failures, like you just mentioned, often it feels personal, that you failed and did you make the right decision? And I think what I've learned a lot is that oftentimes that what seems as a failure, the idea is not wrong in the wrong direction, but the piece of it might have failed and wasn't successful. So do you just scrap the whole direction? And I think what I learned is not to scrap the whole direction just because whatever you had put together for that direction didn't work that time, and then you try the next direction. And you're still in the right direction. You might have failed 3 times. I mean, for some things I feel I'm straight of it looking like the whole idea failed. And so I should just quit, especially when there are voices telling me from previous generations or just around that's not going to work. I told you it wouldn't work. It's never happened for Evans. That's not going to work. So that's tough to get up and, like you said, really pray and ask God, what is the right direction if I got that wrong? But not taking it really as a failure, but building on that the next time. And what I've seen to be true is that oftentimes the direction is the right one. And I learned so much from the first seeming failure that the second iteration of it looked a little different, but it got me to where I needed to be the next time. And try not to take that personal, because it does feel personal. And the voices saying, see, I told you so, it wouldn't work. And so there have been several ones of those from family members, and the generations being different. And the landscape now in manufacturing is way different than it was 20 years ago when the second generation was running Evans. So there can be some hard things, but I think to encapsulate that is the direction is not always wrong when parts of that didn't work.
Yes, I love that.
And I'm sorry.
I was just going to mention I am here. I'm going to turn my camera off because for some reason my Wi-Fi is wavering today. So go ahead, April.
Okay. To piggyback off of what Dee was saying, and also what we're talking about in general, I was reading an article about how boys are taught to be more risk takers and to try things, whereas girls don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to do the article justice, but that was very interesting to me because I could relate to it. And that's exactly what we're talking about right now.
The other part of that is what I think is interesting is, again, what Dee was saying is like, when I think back on my time as an engineer, and even April, I'm sure you've had this where like the first thing isn't necessarily the thing that gets, that goes out to the public or the thing that the public sees. It's like, it's gone through so many different iterations, right? So each of those iterations could be considered a failure. Right? Like it didn't do this thing that we thought it was supposed to do. It wasn't quite right, didn't quite fit together right the way we wanted to, right? But you didn't give up. You went back, you fixed the things that needed to be fixed. And now the things on the shelf, people are using it, you can sell it, you can, you have a new career, you move, whatever the thing is. And so that to me is sort of like what we need to reframe this idea of failure around, right? It's really okay to fail. There are so many lessons in the failure, if we're going to use that term. And so I think that needs to be what we normalize, the idea that it's really, this is a lesson to be learned as opposed to a failure. Because to me, a failure says you quit after that, right?
That's right.
There's nothing else after that.
Yeah, if we could only teach our young people to think like that more.
That's true.
One of the things, as I was listening to you guys talk, is fear comes up with that. Sometimes it's the fear of starting something new, or the fear of that I might not be successful at it, whether you call it a failure or not, just I'm not going to be good at it. So what advice do you have for a woman trying to break into this industry that may be carrying a little bit of her own baggage and fear, whether she's straight out of school or maybe she's experienced and looking to shift gears and maybe do something different?
Well, I'd like to take that one first, Andrea, and just kind of to piggyback on what everyone else has said about the fear factor. Being a daughter of a Black naval pilot, who majored in chemistry and physics and all that, so he was a heavy hitter. So that was something that was embedded in me, that there is no such thing as you can't, and that there is really no failure, because in all things that you do, there is a process to your purpose. And through that process, there are going to be what quote unquote society states as failures, but again, they're not failures, but they're stepping stones, they're opportunities to continue to stay on your path to your purpose. But in terms of encouraging women, and again, I have to go back to unleashing your superpowers, because one is about a mindset. So when a woman goes into an industry or into a profession or anything, one, they have to know that this is what they want to do. Do your due diligence, check and research. Is this something that suits me? Is this something that suits my, my acumen, my personality, whatever? Is this something that I want to do? And then, even if it's not, try it again, do your due diligence research to see what it's going to take to succeed in that. So I have to, again, circle back to the mindset thing of being able to know, and if you know that you are going to encounter obstacles, be ready to muddle through them, if you will, and don't give up. But remember, put your purpose ahead of you. This is what I'm striving for. If this is what it's going to take, because it's not going to be all bed and roses. There may be some struggles, especially in this non-traditional occupation for women, where we know that men are, it's all men oriented and whatnot, but we have something to prove. And then again, maybe we don't, because we already know who we are, and it's a matter of allowing that to shine through. Because in what we've been doing in terms of our panel discussions and talking with men who are the leaders of their companies or what have you, we always ask them, well, would you? And then they always say, well, yes, we would love to have women in there, but they don't want to come in, or they don't. And a lot of it's because women are not aware. So that's where that awareness piece comes in, making them aware of what is available to them. So again, just to encourage women, seek and check yourself in terms of what is it you really want to accomplish. And if you need help in that, then we'll help you find that superpower within you.
Okay. All right.
I want to answer this question, and the one that's in the chat also. I just want to mention
something I want to build on the one in the chat.
Sure.
You're doing my job, Dr. NaToshia. Okay. I'm going to add something to the one in the chat. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll just say a couple of things. One is I think on the term non-traditional, I just think about that term in general. And there's a part of me that sort of rejects that idea that it's non-traditional. And because I think there's something about that term, and this is just for me, there's something about that term that just sort of has me going a little, really? Because it sounds very old fashioned, right? In a sense. I'm in a STEM career. I'll just say what I like to call a semi-STEM career. And I only say semi, and I don't even think that's the right term. But I think of things like welding, that's a STEM career. I think of things like solar panel installations, electrical line workers. You guys are, those jobs are well paying. They aren't necessarily the job that we think of, because of course you're on the ground, you're getting your hands dirty. You are, you're doing all the things that aren't this glamorous idea of a thing. So when people think about STEM in general, they're thinking of people in these high-rise offices, and they have these cool, fun things they're working with. And those of us really not. And so I think that we as a community of people who are norm disruptors, we have to change that idea also. We have to tell the truth about what it really is, because that's a part of the whole stigma of it. You have to be really smart to be in STEM. You don't, right? You have to have a love of science, or you have to be technologically advanced. No, no to any of that. Like none of those things are true. And so that's a part of.
But you got to work hard, just like in any other industry.
But you would do that in any other industry. You do have to work hard. You do have to be diligent. You do have to hone your craft. You do have to. But these are things that go across genres of jobs. So those are the things that we have to knock down if we're going to continue to be our disruptor of the norm.
Yeah. And believe it or not, we are down to the last 10 minutes almost of our time together.
That was fast.
I know, it goes by really fast. So keep your responses brief. And I put in there in the chat, if you have questions to all our attendees, please drop them in. I want to weave them into some of the other questions that I really want the panelists to respond to. And this next one up goes with one of the ones, Dr. NaToshia, where you were going with the one in the chat about handling the imposter syndrome. But I want you to build into that answer also for those that are, let me get my question together, the feeling isolated. So not only do they have this thing, I'm at the table, but I don't feel like I deserve to be at the table, or I feel like I'm pretending to be somebody else, like an imposter syndrome, but also the flip side of it, feeling a little bit of isolated. Like, how do you build community so that some of the things that you're battling against, you have the ability to kind of overcome? So Dee, do you want to kick this one off for us?
Yes, I sure will. Something that has really helped me from feeling isolated, because I'm almost always at the table with men, whether it's even in the banking industry or, something I'm in, but engineering, certainly with manufacturing meetings and tables. I found just roundtable peer groups have so helped me. And I have been involved in them along the way in so many different areas. Like I'll have a manufacturing one that's men and women, or I'll have just a women peer group that I'm a part of, or certainly individual coaches that I've had along the way and in different seasons. But there are just so many different peer groups that are so helpful, because you're able to just, get affirmation a lot of times, but then just be able to, you learn so much to make you, more skilled in whatever it is you're doing, if it's especially a specific table that has to do with your manufacturing world or whatever it is. But I just find that what's helped me navigate has been just those coaches and those mentors and the peer groups that I'm being a part of. Because here, we're in a smaller company, 65, 70 people. And at the top, there's very few people and certainly very few women at the top. And so it really don't have a lot to bounce off of unless you find that from the outside of your company. So it's been very helpful to me.
Awesome. And I dropped those ideas in the chat, because I think that is something that people won't say, yeah, I feel like I'm alone all the time. But hopefully if someone is on today's call and you're feeling that way, you have some options. April, do you want to respond to this one?
Yeah, you must be able to read my mind.
You look like you wanted to say something.
I had this feeling about 4 months ago. It was back in February, and it was when I got this new position. And I just remember feeling like I didn't quite deserve it. But at the same time, I knew I deserved it. And I talked to some friends. I have friends that are in other industries that are also moving up. One person told me that all these guys around me don't know what they're doing either, And I thought about it, and I remember instances where they will have little failures, but it doesn't get highlighted. They'll kind of sweep it under the rug, like, oh, he just tried it. Oh, he messed up. He could try again. And with us, it's a little different. Ours tend to get highlighted a little bit more. But after thinking about that, I remember thinking to myself that I do deserve to be here. And I worked hard to get to where I am. And, I just put that behind me. And so it's a daily process with myself that I work on that. But I do remember running into that feeling, and it was crazy. I'd never gotten that feeling before. Especially going through engineering school, you think it would have happened long before now, but no.
That's good. And we have a comment in the chat about adding, give known resources for people who want to enter into your industries. And I know it's almost time for me to get ready to wrap up, but I so wanted to be able to touch on the isolation piece and the imposter one, because I think that is something so common in these kind of work environments. So if there are resources, you can either drop them in the chat or you can send them to me directly. And when I send out the responding the email with the recording, I can add those resources for people to direct. I know at least for here, I do some work with Georgia Piedmont Technical College, local here, and they do a lot of programs, in particular trade programs that are for women who want to enter into the trades. They can get certified, or they have an apprentice program.
Andrea, can I say something on that
real quick? Please do.
You know, for our manufacturing industry, it's the technical schools and the career academies that are feeding those jobs that are here, whether it's welding or CNC manufacturing and quality certifications. All of those young women can get in, or older, really, you know, go to a tech school and you learn. I mean, if somebody showed up here and they were a woman and they had a welding skill, I'd be fired up because I could put them to work, you know, in welding. And, you know, those kind of careers are things that women don't think about that they can do, but so many of them do so well. We've hired about 5 new women on the floor, in the manufacturing floor, as press operators. They came in with no skill for that, but if they had, you know, in different ways, they could really advance up, and they do so well out there. And it's the first few years that I've seen a lot of women that we've been able to put on the manufacturing floor, which I'm excited about, because typically it's some sort of office job that they're applying for that has either a degree or not degree, but it's really neat to see them enjoy working on the floor in manufacturing.
So you said technical programs, career academy, and there was another one you mentioned?
Well, no, those are, I think, the career academy, technical schools, where you're going to get advanced.
For opportunities for certificate programs. So you know, the week-long, month-long programs where they lead with a particular skill in a particular thing, certification programs. I would Google all of those technical colleges, especially if you're in and around in Georgia. We have a lot of them. I think we have 20. I can't remember. We have a lot of them, but community and technical colleges, certificate programs, some of those certificate programs, especially if you're going through some of your local colleges, are free or at reduced costs. So those will be the first place I would look in doing those things.
Okay,
that's good. Good idea.
All right. So if there are any others, women that you think of, talking to my panelists now, please do send it to me, because when I send out the recording, as I mentioned, I can put some of those in there if someone wants to direct a young person to go into the industry. And if there are no other questions, I got to get ready to close. We're down to the last 5 minutes. So any other questions before I get ready to kind of wrap things up? So in quick popcorn manner to my panelists, one piece of advice you'd leave with women in this industry, if we were talking, and the people who are on this call are probably from all different types of industries, but one piece of advice that you'd leave them, rapid fire.
I got one. Be faithful in the little things. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. When you're faithful in those little things and you work hard at them, you're going to be promoted in an area. It's just true. I mean, when I have folks who I know are working hard and even educating themselves outside of that one space that they're in, they're always advancing to the next level.
Okay. Next.
I would say, know thyself first. I think that's your objectives, goals, future plans. Know thyself first.
And I wanted to piggyback on that, on what NaToshia just said in terms of know thyself, and then find a mentor. Find someone that you can talk with, who can sort of guide and direct you in the direction of that you want to pursue. So, because a mentor can, be a lifesaver and help with that isolation feeling as well.
Absolutely. Agreed. That's good.
All right.
And I would say, remember why you're here. What got you to where you are right now, and think about the path that you're blazing for someone behind you.
Right. Know your purpose. Yes. Know your purpose.
And not only do you need a mentor, I would say you need colleagues, you need a mentor, and you need a sponsor. You need all three of those things. Yeah.
Awesome. All true. All right. So this wraps up our discussion for today. Believe it or not, the lunch hour is over. So a few reminders is one, Check out Slaying Your Invisible Dragon that opens up in October. If this is where you are in your career, you're trying to figure out, need to move some junk out of the way so you can be successful, be a part of my next cohort. Also, Power Hour trainings, leadership, communication, and teamwork. You can book one for your team to come in and kind of do a little deep dive over a lunch period like this. So lastly, give my panelists a hand clap. I know it's tough to get in and talk about this in such a short time, but you guys did an awesome job. You dropped so many nuggets, and each one of you are an inspiration for women who are going into these fields, whether you call it non-traditional or not. One, we're not heavy populated in there. And thank you all for attending. So far, I've hosted 11 of these conversations, have had hosted over 38 women, well, actually 38 women with this one, speakers, and have had over 500 attendees join.
Good job.
And so it's been a lot of fun to do this one. Please write down October 21st, join me for Fit for the Race, which will be the final session for this calendar year. And the survey, it helps me to kind of decide on what the topics will be. So you can help me decide for the topics for 2022 by completing the survey with it, because there's a portion in there. And if you are interested in being a panelist, you have this burning topic you'd love to be able to share and a perspective on, you can also do that in the survey as well. So with that, it is the top of the hour. Yay, and I did it on time. So join me in thanking the panelists again. You guys were awesome. Thank you for your time today, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Great seeing all you ladies.
Bye.
Nice to meet y'all.
Bye-bye.
Same here.